Haven't been here in a while. From time to time, I come on and I have posted videos with the intent of trying to be funny, but alas, that doesn't seem to be the climate that we're in anymore. Um, can't be a typical YouTuber and just get on here and just for little chuckles and giggles. Things are way more serious right now, and they need to be addressed by normal civilians like me. Psaki recently was asked a question, which I thought she handled it in a very dismissive manner. Now, before I dive into this a little further more, I'd like to repeat, this is not taking a political side. This needs to be addressed immediately. This is not coming from a political side. The reason that I say this is because too many people will look at things from a political aspect, either or, right or left, and that's it. They'll dismiss the conversation, they'll dismiss the question, and we are missing so much information and so much provocative thinking because we're picking sides. So I'm looking at this from a factual standpoint. So I hope you join me for the ride. Psaki recently was extremely dismissive with a reporter. Now, upon looking at this, the reason why I grew concerned was because his question did not deserve to be dismissed. Because his question comes from citizens. I mean, if he thought about it, he's not the only one thinking about it. He simply asked something along the lines of, migrants aren't forced to take the vaccine. How is it that American taxpayers are forced? So, again, she dismissed the question. Now, one would think former White House press secretary Kylie Mc something something something. I can't be professional. I'm just on YouTube. I don't want to mispronounce her last name. But the former press secretary, I don't know if you guys remember, she would come to the meetings with like a huge, let's say trapper keeper. For anybody who doesn't remember that, go ahead and Google that. But this thick, huge, kind of portfolio or folder, whatever you want to call it, with little post-its, enormous, with all this information, like she would be ready to address the American public. Again, this is not, doesn't mean I like her more or like her any less. These are just facts that we need to get to the point where we are addressing facts, because things are so muddled now, we don't know what's going on. So let's just look at that. She would come well prepared, where Psaki doesn't even seem like if she bothers. It seems like she's frustrated and annoyed. Given her job, I can see why. These are very pressing times. That does not mean you dismiss a question, especially when it's a logical one. The reporter asked, why are migrants not forced to take the vaccine, while American citizens that are paying tax dollars that are currently being used, some of it being used to assist the migrants that are entering the country. So why is it that they get a pass? It was a thought-provoking question, an honest one. Remember, factual situation, not picking sides. Her response was, yeah, that's correct. And then she kept it moving. As Americans, please don't let this get lost that I am saying that, because as soon as you even try to speak a certain way, people will peg you as something. No, this is just asking why. Now I have my iPad. For anybody who didn't see it, I decided to show you guys. Usually in the past I would show you via my phone, but again, I'm attempting to be a professional even with my little microphone. But here we are. I'm going to show you the clip real quickly so you can see that I'm not citing Rolling Stones, because it's not like that's reputable anymore. An iconic magazine. Now, it's crap. Because how can you get a job at a prestigious publication? You know how many credentials you have to show on your resume to even get considered for a job like that? And then to not fact check it? I'm interrupting myself, but for those of you who may not know, Rolling Stones came out with an article recently mentioning how a lot of people were not seen by hospital staff with gunshot wounds because of ivermectin cases that were skyrocketing, and people had to assist those people that had severe side effects and could not attend gunshot victims. Now, this is in Oklahoma. If I'm not saying anything correct, don't go by me. I encourage everybody to go and do your own fact checking, especially in this day and age, because people are giving so much misinformation. So it's appalling how somebody from Rolling Stones, who has a nice paycheck, and you can't count even on those people. You have to count on YouTubers, which is a sad state of affairs, I might add. But here we go. I looked this up on Forbes, which to my knowledge is still reputable. I know they did say Kylie Jenner was a self-made billionaire. I know that's not exactly true, but I'll let them have this pass. This isn't accurate because it was filmed, so bear with me while I show you.
Requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people, but it's not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct. Go ahead.
Now, he had asked, again, you could look it up. He had asked that why is it a requirement for citizens? Let me repeat myself just in case I wasn't close to this. Why is it a requirement for citizens and not for migrants? And how dismissive was she? Wasn't she? She was like, yeah, that's correct, and kept it moving. How dare she? We are at a time where there is a pandemic. People are worried. Some people are going to lose their jobs over this. Somebody could say, just get the vaccine, that's it, which it should not even be called a vaccine. If you get polio, the polio vaccine, you're never going to get polio. Where if you get the COVID vaccine, you might get COVID. It's not a vaccine, guys. It should be called like a gene therapy shot, or like the flu shot. The flu shot was never called a vaccine. It was like, get your flu shot. There's a reason why it was never called a vaccine. Because theoretically, somebody who gets the flu shot can get the flu. Therefore, right off the bat, we're being deceived. Somebody could nerd it up and say no because of blah, 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 blah. If you get the measles vaccine, you will never get the measles. You could be sitting next to somebody with the measles, you won't. However, that does not happen with COVID. So we really need to get to the crux of the matter. We cannot just sit back and at this point be getting lied to. It's quite concerning how some people are willing to get lied to because of their political affiliation. We all have wonderful functioning working brains. This is not a matter of what side you're on. It's just facts. Somebody might say, oh, well, you should get the vaccine because it has so many benefits. Right. That does not mean you ignore the negative that comes along with it. Everything should be discussed. But that's not what I'm talking about today. What I decided to predominantly focus on was how dismissive she was. So my concern isn't even about the vaccine. My concern is how citizens are just allowing themselves to flat out be fed shit. Like, did we not learn this in school about bandwagon mentality, propaganda, all that type of stuff? Didn't we learn that in history class? Well, I learned some of it. And where's the transparency or the decent human respect for people that are paying their taxes and they want to be treated just like other human beings? The fact that a migrant does not have to forcibly get the vaccine, who's to say that they're not spreading corona? Why are we just blaming unvaxxed people? If we really want to place blame, we could say, hey, let's blame unvaxxed people, and that includes migrants, does it not? But nobody wants to have that conversation, maybe perhaps for the fear of sounding racist or something. I could only allude to that, because why are we not having a conversation about that in particular. It's concerning. So if you really want to help America, the citizens that are for this, why are we not looking at that? That's my concern. So I thought of this really fun analogy. See if it makes sense. But let's say you're with two of your friends, and one of your friends asks you for money. Stay with me. One of your friends asks you for money. You give them money, and they buy the third friend a piece of cake. And then you're like, oh, I'd like some of my money so I can buy myself a piece of cake. And they're like, no. So they've basically bought cake for your second friend, right? I don't mean to confuse it. I'm confusing myself, but stay with me. The whole point is that they borrowed your money to buy a piece of cake for somebody else, but now they're holding on to your money and they don't want to buy you a piece of cake. Is that fair? Clearly that's not. The reason I came up with that silly analogy is because it's kind of like the situation with the unvaxxed. The unvaxxed could be like, hey, you're using my taxpayer money to help the livelihood of these migrants. And they are not forced. Let's say the cake is the privilege to not take the vaccine. And the taxpayers are like, I too would like a piece of that cake. I would want the piece of cake that represents the privilege, the freedom to not have to mandatory take the vaccine. And then your government tells you, no, that's not how it goes. I hope that made sense. To me, it resonated with me, but these are the things that I think of in my head. But it's clearly not fair that Americans are forced to do stuff and other people aren't. And this has nothing to do with division or race. This is factual. Why is that? Whether you're Democrat or Republican or independent, whatever you are, you need to wonder, why are American taxpayers getting the worst options? Some people might say, who cares? There's a pandemic, therefore we need to be forced. Right. So if that's the case, you also should force migrants. Does that make sense? You can't give an argument that, oh, only a certain amount of the people in the United States are spreading it and ignoring another percentage. That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't compute. And you know that. Whether you haven't wanted to address that in your head, it is a fact. Remember, I'm speaking based on facts because these things need to be addressed. So I really hope somebody listened. I hope that people don't react like, with the usual gibberish that you see online, which would be so unfortunate, because I really do hope somebody resonated with this, because it's concerning. And I will be coming back with only factual pieces, because I do not want to politicize a situation that's of grave importance right now in the United States. This is not the time. Like, so many important things are happening, and for people to continuously try to divide situations due to your political affiliation is nonsense. At the end of the day, you have your own brain and your own thoughts, and you need to start using them. I'm clearly worried because now it's like, if we're being told to do something now, the people that are for people being forced, you need to understand you're opening a gateway. So once they do that, in the future they might force you to do something that you might not agree with. So you have to understand that this is the start of something that we don't know if we could scale back. So with that, I'm gonna end it. I hope this was slightly informative, I don't know. But whether it's informative or not, at least I'm doing better than Rolling Stones. I feel what I gave you was accurate information. So yeah, I will be back, and more with a serious tone. I guess I'm not going to be silly anymore on YouTube. These are definitely worrisome times, because a lot of people are going to lose their job. And that's terrifying. There's a huge homeless problem in the United States. which also isn't being addressed. This is a great country, whether you like it or not, compared to other countries. Because if you don't compare it to other countries, there's going to be the usual people that are going to complain. But if you take the time to compare it to other countries, you'll see this is as good as it gets. So you cannot risk it getting any worse. We got to keep what we have right now and hope for better times. But anyhow, I will certainly be back. This needs to be addressed more often. So I will see you guys soon, and I hope you learned a little bit. Let's have our higher up people not be so dismissive to us. We don't deserve that. We're not bad people. We don't need to be talked down to. We are, for the most part, we're good, and we're scared, and we're frightened, and we just want information. And just give us the answers. So, I'm going to stop now. Nice to be back.